How's everybody doing? Beautiful day out here. Going for a walk. Take the girls out for a walk. And today we're going to do a coffee in the woods. Not surprising. Coming from me, that is. It's not surprising. I'm going to do a coffee in the woods. But today is a little bit different. I'm going to show you guys how I personally brew my coffee. What did you find there, Lexi? Ah, we got a martin set here. Another martin set. And it looks like there might be something in there. If you'll see it there. Where is it? Right there. So there's a martin set right there. And there's actually a martin in it. Come here, Lexi. Misty, come here. Misty, come here. Come on. You stay away from that. Come on. So obviously, there's a trapper that works this area. Misty, come on. Very important, if you find traps from a trapper, it is illegal to tamper with these things. And I'm gonna have to be extra careful because this is obviously somebody's trap line. And when you have dogs, you're gonna make sure your dogs are close to you because you don't want your dogs to get caught in somebody's snare or conibear traps and all this kind of stuff. Very, very important. Okay, back to the coffee situation. We're gonna make a coffee. We're gonna find a spot to get set up and enjoy a brew. And I'm gonna show you how I brew my coffee. And I brew my coffee a little bit differently than anybody else. Yeah, you heard it right. That's a pretty bold statement to say that, for me to say that. But not as bold as my coffee. So we're gonna find a spot and I'm gonna make a cup of coffee and I'm gonna show you how I incorporated a few key elements that I've taken from the recently deceased Mors Kochanski. And how I incorporate a few different elements into my coffee brew when I'm out in the woods. So if you're a coffee drinker and you like your coffee, or even if you're not a coffee drinker, I'm inviting you to hang out with me. And we're gonna go find a place, go for a walk. And when we're tired of walking, we're gonna set up and have a coffee. So stay tuned, it's coming up. There's another martin set right there. So that's the third one I catch there. I see on the side of the trail. And you can see there's a set inside. And from here, I can see the set has not been triggered. And I see some bait on the end of the box. Very cool. That's the way it is. It's bush life right there. You girls ready to go? Yeah, careful, Misty. Go. So again, you don't want to mess with traps. Okay, we have our beginnings of our coffee. Now let our fire burn down. And while that's, I'm getting a few coals in there and getting some fire going, we'll talk a little bit about how I use this right here. Now, I do coffee multiple different methods. I'm not exclusive to one method of brewing coffee, but I prefer the French press. This is what I believe is creates the best coffee out in the woods. So I do coffee, I make my coffee multiple different ways, including pushing the button on the Keurig machine. I'm not above that. Hang on one second, let me put some more wood on here. So I mentioned earlier about how I use a few elements from Mr. Mors Kochanski, who recently passed away. If you know who he is, there's no introduction needed there. If you don't know who he is, just quickly, he was a survival expert here in Canada, and was very, very respected and wrote multiple books. He's all over the internet. He's not hard to find. Just look him up. So back to the coffee press. This here, if you're not familiar, the way a coffee press works, we'll just go through that real quick, is you put your coffee in your vessel, you boil your water. Once your water is boiled, you pour your water in your vessel, and you put the lid on. The lid is equipped with a stainless steel screen that is very fine mesh. So you got your coffee in, boiled water on top. You lay it on top like that. You let it steep for a few minutes. And once you've steeped it for as long as your desire, then you simply press down on your coffee and then pour it into your cup, and away you go. The way I do it, that's a little bit different. I utilize the French press. But what I do is I start with cold water. So I put my cold water in. Once I got my cold water in, then I put my coffee in. Today I got some coffee from a trip to Dominican Republic, so I got some nice Dominican Republic coffee. I'm gonna go generous on here. Now just to let you see, just like that. So now that my coffee is in my vessel, in my cup, very important. One thing that Mors Kochanski mentioned is to not stir. So you let your coffee float on top here. Once I got some coals on my twig stove, we're going to put this on. I'm going to rearrange the camera. Then we're going to keep on going with our coffee brew. Now I'm just using my cup as a lid to speed up the process of boiling the water. So right now, essentially, coffee's floating in there, and we want to bring it to a boil, but I don't want a raging boil. I want a slow boil. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'm going to cover that up and keep an eye on that. And we're going to have that boiling in no time. Now, in addition, because it's a twig stove and you can't regulate the heat, what I generally do is I'll grab my cup, my French press, and when my water starts to boil, if it boils too much, I simply pick up the cup and I raise it over higher, just away from the flames, and I regulate my heat that way. We'll do that when the time comes. Well, things are warming up. Now in the cup, I hope the camera is picking it up. But the perimeter is, the coffee grinds are getting saturated in the water. And there's a peak in the middle. And it's slowly working its way to that. So we're going to cover that up. And we're getting there. The one thing about twig stoves is you better have an ample supply of twigs, because it burns through them real quick. You gotta forever feed these things. Yeah, this thing's gonna start boiling there any second. You can hear it hissing. Now, the other part that Mors Kochanski spoke of when making coffee is he clearly said that you don't want your coffee to boil beyond a minute to a minute and a half, because after that you start, as he called it, extracting properties out of the coffee bean that makes it bitter. Now, I have tried this theory out, and I found that to be true. That if you overboil your coffee beans, you will have a bitter taste coming out of your coffee. This thing is just about to start to boil. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're boiling, and I'm going to pick it up a little bit. Now, I hope the camera's picking it up, but this is rolling from the edges, rolling in, and that's what I want. So now I'm going to use the timer on the camera to time myself. And now I'm just suspending my cup. I'm regulating my heat by suspending the cup. Got a nice boil going on there, just perfect. Now those coffee beans are just mixing away in the water. They're just floating around in there, and they're being tossed around, and it's just perfect right there. I find that if it boils too much, you'll actually get a foam on top of your water, and it wants to boil over top of your cup. We're getting close to our minute there now. There's approximately 1 minute. So now I'm going to pull it away. Turn the camera here. Okay, so now I put my press on here. Let me readjust the camera. All right, so now that my coffee has brewed for a minute-ish, I probably went about 1.5 minutes today. Now I can press it down. And my coffee is ready to drink. I'm going to put this back on my little makeshift table over here. And I'm going to readjust the camera. I'm going to move it over to one side, and we're going to pour ourselves a cup. Okay, so now we're ready for the pour. So that coffee right there is way too hot to drink right now. So we have to cool it down. Because we're going to burn ourselves on this. There you have it, folks. This is how I brew my coffee when I'm out in the woods. I make a combination of cowboy coffee, because truly it is cowboy coffee right up to the point I put the press on top of the vessel and press it down. So that combined with a few tips from an old pro makes a awesome bush coffee. And I encourage you to try it out. If you're already into the French press, this is just one small step different. A few little steps different. It takes a little bit more time, but I think the result is absolutely worth it. So, guys, I'm glad you joined me today. The girls are still running around me, having fun, running around in the woods. I'm going to have my coffee. I'm going to have my lunch. I'm going to head out here and go back home and plant my bum on the couch and watch a movie. So until next time, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Oh yeah, that's awesome.